My sibling moved in while I was hospitalized and changed the locks. The Uber driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror like I might collapse at any moment. I probably looked like hell, still moving like my ribs were held together with duct tape and good intentions, which honestly wasn't far from the truth. For weeks in the hospital after a semi decided my Honda Civic looked like a good merge target will do that to you. This is 1247, Maple Street, right? He asked, pulling up to my house. Our house, technically, since the will specified that both Riley and I inherited it jointly. But I'd been the one paying the mortgage, utilities, and maintenance for the past 3 years while my younger sibling bounced between jobs and complained about how unfair life was. Yeah, this is it. Thanks. I fumbled for my wallet with fingers that still didn't want to cooperate fully. The nerve damage in my left hand was supposed to be temporary, but supposed to be wasn't doing me any favors right now. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing in the October air and feeling grateful to be anywhere that wasn't room 314 at St. Mary's Medical Center. The house looked exactly the same peeling blue paint on the shutters that I'd been meaning to fix, same crooked mailbox that our neighbor's kid had clipped with his bike 2 summers ago. Except for the silver Subaru in my driveway. Riley's silver Subaru. I figured they were probably checking on the place, which was actually thoughtful. We hadn't exactly been on speaking terms since the argument about Mom's jewelry 3 months ago. Riley thought they deserved the pearl necklace because they were going through a hard time, conveniently ignoring that they'd been going through a hard time for the better part of a decade. I walked up to the front door, each step sending little reminders through my still healing leg about why you should always wear a seatbelt. My key slid into the lock and nothing. Turned left, turned right, wiggled it, tried the gentle but firm approach that sometimes worked when the lock was being temperamental. Nothing. What the hell? I muttered, trying again. The key definitely fit, but the lock mechanism wasn't budging. I walked around to the back door, muscle memory guiding me to the spare key hidden in a fake rock Mom had bought from a garden center catalog. The key was still there, but it didn't work either. That's when I noticed the windows. New curtains hung in the living room, expensive-looking ones in a shade of burgundy that I definitely hadn't chosen. Through the kitchen window, I could see different dishes in the drying rack. Nice dishes. Not the mismatched secondhand set I'd been using since college. I knocked on my own front door, feeling increasingly surreal about the whole situation. Riley answered, wearing my Northwestern University sweatshirt and an expression of annoyed surprise, like I was a door-to-door salesman who'd interrupted their favorite TV show. What are you doing here? They asked. I stared. I live here, Riley. I just got discharged from the hospital. Actually, they said, crossing their arms, I live here now. And you're trespassing. The morphine was definitely out of my system, because I felt that sentence hit like a physical blow. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. This is my house. I have documentation proving it. I suggest you leave before I call the police. And then my little sibling, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd covered for when they crashed Dad's car senior year, who I'd lent $3,000 to just last Christmas, closed the door in my face. I heard the deadbolt slide home with a very final sounding click. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, waiting for Riley to open the door and tell me this was some kind of sick joke. When that didn't happen, I walked back to the front window and cupped my hands against the glass, trying to see inside past those new burgundy curtains. Riley was on my couch, well, apparently their couch now, talking on the phone. I caught fragments through the window, told you someone might try this. And, yeah, they look pretty rough. I pulled out my phone and called them. Through the window, I watched Riley glance at their buzzing phone and deliberately decline the call. The logical part of my brain, the part that debugged code for a living, started cataloging facts. New locks. New curtains. Nice dishes. Riley answering the door like they owned the place, wearing clothes that looked a lot more expensive than their usual thrift store finds. I tried the doorbell. No answer. Tried knocking again. Nothing. A woman walking her golden retriever slowed down as she passed. Excuse me, she called out, is everything okay? I'm trying to get into my house, I said, which sounded insane even as the words left my mouth. She looked confused. Oh, are you a friend of Riley's? They mentioned they might have visitors. My stomach dropped. How long has Riley been living here? About 3 weeks now, I think. Such a nice young person. They told me their brother had been struggling with some addiction issues and might show up claiming to own the place. The woman's expression shifted to something between pity and suspicion. They said if anyone came by looking rough and demanding to get in, should call them immediately. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest all over again. Ma'am, I'm not struggling with addiction. I just spent a month in the hospital after a car accident. This is my house. I've been living here for 3 years. But even as I said it, I could see how I looked through her eyes. Pale, shaky, moving like everything hurt, which it did. Clothes that hung loose because I'd lost 15 pounds in the hospital. Probably looking desperate and confused. I think maybe you should go, she said gently. I'm going to call Riley and let them know you're here. She walked away quickly, phone already at her ear. I sat down on my own front steps, trying to process what was happening. Riley had told the neighbors I was a drug addict. They'd been here for 3 weeks, which meant they'd moved in barely a week after my accident, while I was still unconscious and on a ventilator. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Riley's lawyer. You are trespassing on private property. Leave immediately or we will involve law enforcement. Lawyer. Riley had a lawyer. I tried to remember the last time we talked before the accident. It was that fight about Mom's jewelry in July, but before that. Riley had visited in June, right after I'd gotten a promotion at work. They'd seemed interested in hearing about the raise, about how I was finally getting ahead financially. They'd been unusually helpful that weekend, insisting on cooking dinner, cleaning up, being the perfect houseguest. That's when I remembered, I'd given them a spare key that weekend when we went to the farmer's market together. They'd offered to go back to the house for the reusable shopping bags I'd forgotten. I'd never gotten a key back. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. This is Officer Martinez with the city police. We've received a report of trespassing at 1247 Maple Street. Are you currently at that location? I looked up at my own house number. Yes, but... Sir, I need you to leave the property immediately. We're sending a unit to make sure you comply. The line went dead. I was still sitting on the steps when a patrol car pulled up 7 minutes later. 2 officers got out, Martinez, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and a younger officer whose name tag read Chen. Are you the individual who was reported for trespassing? Martinez asked, his hand resting casually on his belt. This is my house, I said, slowly getting to my feet. Everything still hurt, but I tried not to show it. I just got out of the hospital and someone changed my locks. Chen was already walking toward the front door. We need to see some identification and proof of residence. I pulled out my wallet, hands still clumsy from the nerve damage, and handed over my driver's license. The address matched, obviously, but Martinez barely glanced at it. Driver's license doesn't prove current residence, he said. Do you have a lease? Mortgage documents? Utility bills? It's all inside. In my filing cabinet. In my house that I can't get into because someone changed the locks. I could hear my voice getting tight with frustration. Chen knocked on the door. Riley answered almost immediately, like they'd been waiting right behind it. They'd changed clothes, now wearing a navy button-down that I'd never seen before, looking composed and concerned. Officers, thank you for coming so quickly, Riley said. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. Can you provide proof that you live here? Martinez asked. Riley disappeared for maybe 30 seconds and came back with a folder. Here's my lease agreement, signed 2 months ago. Utility bills in my name from the past month. And here's the restraining order I filed last week. My brain stuttered. Restraining order. Chen was reading over the documents. Says here you've been harassing the resident via phone calls and threatening messages about claiming ownership of the property. I was in the hospital. I said, louder than I meant to. I've been unconscious or sedated for most of the past month. Check with ST. Mary's Medical Center, I just got discharged this morning. Riley's expression was perfectly calibrated, concerned but wary, like they were dealing with someone unstable. The hospital stay is part of the problem, they said softly. The head injury, it's affected their memory and judgment. Our family has been really worried. What head injury? Riley, what are you talking about? But I could see it working. Martinez and Chen exchanged a look, the kind of look that said they dealt with confused, potentially brain-injured people before. Sir, Martinez said, regardless of any medical issues, you can't be on this property without the resident's permission. We need you to leave now. Can I at least get some of my belongings? My laptop, my clothes. Riley shook their head sadly. I'm sorry, but the restraining order specifically prohibits contact or retrieval of any claimed personal items. Everything would have to go through the courts. Chen handed me back my driver's license. You need to update your address with the DMV. This is causing confusion. I stood there, looking up at my own house, at the window of the bedroom where I'd slept for 3 years, at the front door I'd painted green last spring because Riley said the old red was depressing. Where exactly am I supposed to go? I asked. That's not our concern, Martinez said, but not unkindly. Family services, homeless shelter, friends. But you can't stay here. Riley called out from the doorway. I hope you get the help you need. I really do. The officers waited while I called another Uber, making sure I actually left. As the car pulled away, I saw Riley watching from the window, phone pressed to their ear again. I had the driver take me to the nearest coffee shop so I could think. My bank account, my credit cards, my insurance information, everything important was in that filing cabinet that might as well have been on Mars now. But Riley had made one mistake. I was a software engineer, and I'd been paranoid about data loss since college. I pulled up the cloud storage app on my phone and started downloading 3 years' worth of meticulously scanned documents. The coffee shop's Wi-Fi was painfully slow, but I watched my backup files crawl onto my phone screen with something approaching hope for the first time since this nightmare started. 3 years of mortgage payments, utility bills, property tax records, all time-stamped and geotagged because I've been obsessive about documentation ever since Dad died and left us dealing with his financial mess. While the files downloaded, I called St. Mary's Patient Records Department. Hi, this is Marcus Chen. I was discharged this morning from room 314. I need copies of my admission and discharge paperwork sent to my email immediately. It's an emergency situation involving housing. The clerk, bless her, didn't ask questions. I can have those to you within the hour, Mr. Chen. Is the email on file still current? Perfect, thank you. Next call, my bank. The mortgage payment had auto-drafted from my checking account on October 1st, just like it had every month for 3 years. Before that, I had records going back to when I'd taken over payments from the estate account after probate closed. But as I scrolled through my recent bank statements, something made my blood freeze. There had been another mortgage payment. Same amount, same bank, same loan number. Drafted from an account I didn't recognize on October 15th. I called the mortgage company directly. First National Lending, this is Jessica, how can I help you? Hi, I need to check the payment history on loan number 484-7291. I'm Marcus Chen, one of the borrowers. Let me pull that up, okay, I see the account. Can you verify the property address? I gave her the Maple Street address, my social security number, my mother's maiden name. Alright, Mr. Chen. I show we received double payments this month. Your automatic payment processed on the 1st as usual, and then we received another payment on the 15th from. I heard typing. From Riley Chen. Is that your spouse? My sibling. Can you tell me what documentation they provided to make that payment? It looks like they submitted a copy of the deed and a power of attorney form authorizing them to manage the property due to your medical incapacitation. My coffee cup hit the table harder than I intended, sloshing everywhere. I never signed a power of attorney. Oh. Jessica's voice shifted to careful professionalism. That's concerning. Would you like me to flag the account for potential fraud? Yes. Immediately. And I need copies of whatever documents Riley submitted. I'll email those right now and put a hold on any future payments from that account. While I waited for the email, I did what I should have done immediately. I googled Riley's name plus our city. The third result made my stomach drop. Local entrepreneur overcomes family tragedy to launch home renovation business. It was an article from the community newspaper, dated 2 weeks ago. There was Riley, standing in front of MY house, talking about inheriting the property after their brother's tragic accident and their plans to flip houses in the neighborhood. Marcus was always the responsible one, the quote read, but after the accident, I knew I had to step up and carry on our family's legacy. This house will be the first in my renovation portfolio, a tribute to my brother's memory. My brother's memory. Like I was dead. I screenshotted everything and kept reading. Riley had apparently told the reporter I'd died from my injuries 3 days after the interview was published. There was even a follow-up quote, I'm channeling my grief into something positive. Marcus would have wanted me to use our family home to build something meaningful. The mortgage documents arrived in my inbox, and the power of attorney looked legitimate at first glance. Riley's signature was correct, the notary stamp looked official, and my signature. My signature was perfect. Too perfect. I'd been signing my name the same way for 15 years, but the muscle memory in my hand had been disrupted by the nerve damage from the accident. When I'd signed the discharge papers this morning, my signature had been shaky, imprecise. The signature on this document was my old signature. The one from before the accident damaged the nerves in my left hand. Riley had forged it, but they'd made it too good. I took a picture of my shaky signature from the hospital discharge papers, then compared it to the power of attorney. Any handwriting expert would be able to tell the difference immediately. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, stop digging or you'll regret it. You're not well enough for this fight. I looked up from my phone and scanned the coffee shop. Busy afternoon crowd, college students, remote workers, nobody who looked like they were paying attention to me. But Riley knew I was here. Which meant they were either watching me, or... I opened my phone's location services and felt my blood pressure spike. My location was being shared with Riley's iPhone. I had no memory of setting that up, but it was timestamped from June 15th, the weekend Riley had visited, when they'd been so helpful and accommodating. The weekend they'd copied my house key. I disabled location sharing and immediately called an Uber to the downtown library. If Riley wanted to play surveillance games, I was going to make it as difficult as possible. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the library's computer lab with 3 years of documentation spread across multiple screens, building a timeline that was starting to paint a very clear picture of premeditated fraud. Riley hadn't just taken advantage of my accident. They'd been planning this for months. The evidence was damning, but I needed more than bank records and forged documents. I needed to understand exactly how deep this went. I started with the utility companies. ComEd's customer service rep pulled up the account history and confirmed what I suspected. Riley had called on July 2nd, claiming to be me, and added themselves as an authorized user. They'd used my social security number, my mother's maiden name, and details about the account that only someone with intimate access could know. The person who called knew about the billing dispute from 2019, the rep told me. They referenced the credit we issued for the faulty meter reading. That kind of detail convinced our security verification. July 2nd was 3 days after Riley's visit in June. They'd been taking notes. Next, I called the internet provider, the gas company, the water department. Same story everywhere. Riley had systematically added themselves to every utility account over the summer, always with perfect knowledge of account histories and security details. But the real smoking gun came when I called the post office. Yeah, we've got a mail forwarding request on file, the postal clerk confirmed. Submitted in person on September 8th with proper ID. All mail for Marcus Chen at 1247, Maple Street gets forwarded to P.O. Box 847. September 8th was 3 days before my accident. Riley had filed a mail forwarding request before they could have possibly known I'd be hospitalized. They'd been preparing for something to happen to me, or they'd been planning to make something happen. I felt sick. My own sibling had been hoping for my accident, or worse. I looked up P.O. Box 847 in the Postal Service database. It was registered to Chen Family Estate Services at a downtown address I didn't recognize. The registration was dated August 15th, with Riley listed as the sole authorized recipient. Chen Family Estate Services. They'd created a fake business to steal my mail. I googled the downtown address and found myself staring at the website for Riverside Executive Suites, a virtual office rental company. For $89 a month, you could get a prestigious business address and mail forwarding service. Riley had been building infrastructure for this theft since mid-August. I called Riverside Executive Suites, claiming to be a potential client interested in their mail services. Oh yes, Chen Family Estate Services, the receptionist said cheerfully. Riley's been one of our clients since August. Very professional operation, they handle property management for families dealing with tragic circumstances. So sad about what happened to their brother. What did they tell you happened? Car accident, I think. Riley was just devastated. They said they had to take over the family properties because their brother was, well, they weren't sure he was going to make it. Such a sweet person, really stepped up during a horrible time. Riley had been telling people I might die before I'd even been in an accident. I hung up and stared at the computer screen, trying to process the enormity of what I was uncovering. This wasn't opportunistic theft, it was a sophisticated, months-long campaign to steal my life. But why now? What had changed in Riley's situation that made them this desperate? I searched for their name in court records and found my answer buried in civil filings from June. Riley owed $47,000 to something called Pinnacle Investment Group with a judgment date of July 15th. Wage garnishment had been authorized. Asset seizure was pending. Riley hadn't just wanted my house, they'd needed it. They were being sued by someone with enough money to hire serious lawyers, someone who wasn't going to just write off $47,000. I dug deeper into Pinnacle Investment Group and wished I hadn't. They were a private lending firm with a business model that looked suspiciously like loan sharking with better lawyers. The kind of people who didn't stop at wage garnishment when you couldn't pay. Riley hadn't just betrayed me, they'd sold me out to pay off dangerous creditors. My hands were shaking as I printed everything. The nerve damage made my grip unsteady, but adrenaline was doing most of the work now. I had evidence of fraud, forgery, identity theft, and mail fraud. But I also had something more important. I understood the timeline now. Riley hadn't been waiting for me to die in that hospital room. They'd been praying for it. The laptop battery was dying and my phone was down to 12% when I finally found what I'd been looking for buried in the county property records database. A quitclaim deed filed on September 12th, 4 days after Riley had set up the mail forwarding, 1 day after my accident, transferring my 50% ownership of 1247 Maple Street from Marcus Chin to Riley Chin for consideration of $1 and other valuable considerations. My signature on the deed was perfect. Too perfect, just like the power of attorney. But the filing had a timestamp, 2:47 p.m. on September 12th. I pulled up my medical records on my phone and cross-referenced the dates. At 2:47 p.m. on September 12th, I'd been in surgery having my spleen removed. The operation had lasted from 1:15 p.m. to 4:23 p.m., according to my discharge paperwork. Riley had filed documents with my forged signature while I was literally unconscious on an operating table. I screenshotted everything and was about to dive deeper when a shadow fell across my computer screen. I looked up to see a man in an expensive suit, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that probably cost extra. "Marcus Chen," he asked, extending his hand. "I'm David Pinnacle, from Pinnacle Investment Group. I think we need to talk." My blood went cold. "I don't know what Riley told you, but..." "Oh, Riley didn't tell me anything. I've been having you followed since you left the coffee shop." He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down uninvited. "Interesting research you're doing. Very thorough." I glanced around the library. The computer lab was mostly empty now, just a couple of students wearing headphones and a librarian who looked like she was getting ready to close up for the day. "Following me is illegal," I said, keeping my voice steady. Pinnacle chuckled. "So is defaulting on a $47,000 loan, but here we are. Your sibling has been very creative in trying to solve that problem. I'm not responsible for Riley's debts." "No, you're not. But you are responsible for what happens to that house now that it's collateral." He leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. "See, Riley put your property up as security for a loan modification agreement 3 weeks ago. Very generous terms. We agreed to accept the house as full payment for the outstanding balance, plus fees and interest. Call it an even $60,000. My mouth went dry. Riley doesn't own the house. They can't use it as collateral. Actually, according to the county records, Riley Chen owns 100% of 1247 Maple Street as of September 12th, quitclaim deed, properly notarized and filed." Pinnacle's smile widened. "Your signature was quite clear, even if you were, what's the phrase? Of diminished capacity due to medical trauma at the time." He'd known about the surgery. He knew the timeline was impossible. "You know it's forged," I said. "What I know is that we have a legally binding agreement with the property owner of record. What you suspect about document authenticity is something you'd have to prove in court, which takes time. Time your sibling doesn't have." Pinnacle reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder. "Riley's payment was due yesterday. They defaulted. Foreclosure proceedings begin Monday morning. You can't foreclose on a property you don't actually hold a mortgage on. We're not foreclosing. We're exercising our right to claim collateral under the terms of our agreement. Much faster process." He opened the folder and showed me documents I couldn't quite read from across the table. "Your sibling will have 72 hours to vacate. After that, anyone found on the property will be considered trespassing. Including me," was the implication. I tried to think through the legal angles, but my head was pounding and the library's fluorescent lights felt too bright. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm a reasonable businessman, Marcus. I don't want to evict a recovering accident victim. Very bad optics." Pinnacle leaned forward. "I'm prepared to make you a deal. You help me locate Riley. They've been dodging our calls since Tuesday, and I'll give you a week to pack up your personal belongings before we take possession. And if I don't help you find them, then you get treated like any other trespasser we find on our property come Monday morning." His voice stayed pleasant, but something shifted in his eyes. "Riley made this mess, Marcus. Don't let family loyalty make it your mess too." He stood up and dropped a business card on the table. "You've got until 9 a.m. Monday to decide. Call me when you've made the smart choice." After he left, I sat staring at his business card for maybe 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Riley hadn't just stolen my house, they'd lost it to loan sharks who were now threatening me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number: "Stop looking into things that don't concern you. Last warning." I looked around the library again. Different unknown number than before, but the timing was suspicious. Pinnacle had just walked out of here 2 minutes ago. I gathered up all my printed documents and walked to the circulation desk. The librarian, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, looked up from her computer. "Excuse me," I said, "do you have security cameras in the computer lab?" "Yes, why? Is there a problem?" "Someone's been threatening me, and I think they might be watching me here. Would it be possible to get footage from the past 2 hours?" She frowned. "I'd need to call the head librarian and probably the police." "Are you in immediate danger?" I thought about Pinnacle's smile, about Riley's fake business, about waking up this morning thinking I was just coming home from the hospital. "Yeah," I said. "I think I might be." The head librarian, Mrs. Patterson, arrived 20 minutes later with 2 police officers I didn't recognize. I spread my documents across the conference room table like evidence in a murder trial, which honestly wasn't far from how this felt. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said Officer Williams, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who'd been taking notes for the past 10 minutes. "Your sibling has been systematically stealing your identity since June, forged legal documents while you were in surgery, and is now working with loan sharks to sell your house." That's exactly what happened. I pulled up the timestamps on my phone. Look, Riley filed the quitclaim deed at 2:47 p.m. on September 12th. Here's my surgical report showing I was unconscious from 1:15 to 4:23 that same day. They literally forged my signature while I was having my spleen removed. Officer Chen, no relation, unfortunately common name, whistled low. "This is sophisticated stuff. Most family fraud is pretty sloppy, crimes of opportunity. This looks planned." It was planned. I showed them the mail forwarding request dated 3 days before my accident. Riley set up infrastructure to steal my mail before I was even hospitalized. They were waiting for something bad to happen to me, or what? Williams asked. The thought had been gnawing at me since I discovered the timeline, but saying it out loud felt insane. Or they were planning to make something bad happen. The room went quiet. Mrs. Patterson set down her coffee cup with a soft clink. You think your sibling caused your accident? Chen asked carefully. I don't know. The accident report said the semi-driver fell asleep at the wheel, but I pulled up the photos I'd taken of all the documents. Riley owed $47,000 to dangerous people. They needed money fast. And 3 days before I got hit, they filed paperwork to forward all my mail to their fake business. Williams was already on her phone. I'm calling this in to detectives. This is way above patrol level. She stepped into the hallway, and I could hear fragments, potential insurance fraud. And, attempted murder investigation. My hand started shaking again. Attempted murder. I'd been thinking fraud, identity theft, property crimes. But if Riley had somehow arranged my accident. Marcus, Chen said gently, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Has Riley ever talked about wanting you dead? Even as a joke. I started to say no automatically, then stopped. Last Christmas, during the fight about the $3,000 I'd lent them. Riley had been drunk, angry about some job that hadn't worked out, and they'd said something about how life would be easier if I just disappeared and left them everything. I thought it was just drunk rambling. People say stupid things when they're hurting. They made a comment once, I admitted. But I didn't think. I mean, this is Riley. They used to bring me soup when I was sick. People change when they're desperate, Chen said. Especially when they owe money to groups like Pinnacle Investment. Williams came back into the room looking grim. Detectives are en route. They want you to stay here until they arrive. Apparently David Pinnacle has a file with the FBI. Financial Crimes Task Force has been watching his operation for 2 years. My stomach dropped. What kind of file? The kind where people who can't pay their debts end up having very unfortunate accidents. Williams sat back down. 3 suspicious deaths in the past 18 months, all clients who defaulted on loans. Car accidents, house fires, one apparent suicide that the family disputes. I felt like the room was tilting. Riley borrowed money from people who kill their clients. Gets worse, Williams continued. We ran Riley's name through the system while I was on the phone. They were arrested last night on an outstanding warrant in Michigan. Embezzlement charges from their previous job. They're currently sitting in Wayne County lockup. Wait, what? Riley's in jail. Has been since 11 p.m. yesterday. Which means whoever texted you those threats this afternoon, it wasn't Riley. Chen leaned forward. Marcus, who else knows you're investigating this? Who else would want you to stop digging? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number again. Williams nodded at me to answer, then signaled for quiet. Hello. Marcus, this is David Pinnacle. I hope you've had time to consider our conversation. Actually, I've been talking to the police about you. A pause. That's unfortunate. And unnecessary. I was hoping we could resolve this like civilized people. By civilized, you mean I help you commit fraud? I mean you accept reality. Your sibling signed a contract. Houses change hands. People move on with their lives. His voice was still pleasant, but I could hear an edge creeping in. Some people even get to keep their lives. Williams was frantically gesturing, mouthing words I couldn't make out. Are you threatening me, Mr. Pinnacle? I'm explaining consequences, Marcus. Your house is valuable, but it's not the only thing of value in this situation. The line crackled. I'd hate for your recovery from that accident to suffer any setbacks. The call ended. Williams grabbed my phone and hit redial immediately. It went straight to a disconnected number message. Son of a bitch is using burner phones, she muttered, then looked at me with an expression that made my blood run cold. Marcus, I need you to understand something. You're not just a victim of fraud anymore. You're a witness in a federal investigation. That makes you very valuable to us, and very dangerous to them. The detectives arrived 40 minutes later with the kind of serious expressions that made me understand this had escalated beyond anything I'd imagined when I woke up in that hospital bed this morning. Detective Sarah Martinez, different Martinez than the patrol officer from earlier, was a sharp-eyed woman in her early 40s who looked like she'd seen every variation of human greed and stupidity. Her partner, Detective James Liu, was younger but had the methodical air of someone who lived for documentation and evidence. Mr. Chen, Martinez said, settling into the chair across from me, we need to talk about the timing of your accident. Liu spread out a file folder thick with documents. We've been investigating Pinnacle Investment Group since 2019. 3 of their clients have died under suspicious circumstances, all within weeks of defaulting on loans. Another 4 have been seriously injured in accidents that prevented them from pursuing legal action. My mouth went dry. You think they caused my accident? We think it's a hell of a coincidence, Martinez said. Semi-truck driver named Eddie Vasquez fell asleep at the wheel and plowed into your Honda on September 11th at 3:22 a.m. Driver had been on the road for 14 straight hours, which violates federal transportation regulations. His logbook showed falsified rest stops. Lou slid a photograph across the table. This is Eddie Vasquez's bank statement from September 10th. Notice anything unusual? I studied the statement. Most entries were small, gas stations, truck stops, fast food. But there was a cash deposit on September 9th for $15,000. Where did $15,000 come from? I asked. That's what we'd like to know, Martinez said. Vasquez claims he won it gambling in Atlantic City, but casino security footage shows he was never there. He's been very cooperative since we explained that vehicular manslaughter charges were on the table. So you think Pinnacle paid him to hit me? We think someone did. The question is whether your sibling was involved in setting it up, or if they just took advantage after the fact. Lou pulled out another document. This is Riley's cell phone record from September 8th through 12th. Look at the call patterns. The phone records showed dozens of calls to numbers I didn't recognize, but Lou had helpfully highlighted several patterns. Multiple calls to Pinnacle Investment Group starting September 9th, one day before the mysterious deposit in Vasquez's account. But also calls to something listed as Tri-State Logistics and Empire Transport Solutions. Trucking companies. I guessed. Freight brokers, Martinez corrected. Companies that connect independent drivers with shipping contracts. Empire Transport Solutions specifically handles drivers who are flexible about federal regulations. I felt sick. Riley called them before my accident. Riley called them, then called Pinnacle, then called a notary service in Detroit, Lou said, reading from his notes. All on September 9th. The notary service specializes in, quote, emergency documentation for incapacitated family members. They planned the whole thing, I whispered. Martinez nodded grimly. Prepositioned the notary, arranged for a driver willing to break federal regulations, set up the financial infrastructure to steal your property while you were hospitalized. If you died in that accident, Riley would have inherited everything cleanly. Since you survived, they moved to Plan B. Which was stealing everything while I recovered. Exactly. But here's where it gets complicated. Lou leaned forward. Riley's been in Wayne County lockup since yesterday on embezzlement charges from their previous job. Those charges were filed 6 months ago, but Michigan only issued the warrant last week. I stared at him. What does that mean? It means someone with influence wanted Riley arrested right now, this week. Someone who knew you were getting discharged from the hospital and starting to ask questions. Martinez's expression was grim. Riley's not just a co-conspirator anymore. They're a loose end. And loose ends have a tendency to get cut, Lou added. Before I could process that fully, Officer Williams stuck her head into the conference room. Detectives. We've got a problem. The desk sergeant just took a call from St. Mary's Medical Center. Someone broke into their records department an hour ago and accessed Marcus Chen's file. Security footage shows 2 men in suits, but they knew exactly where to go and had keycards that shouldn't exist. Martinez swore under her breath. They're trying to figure out what Marcus knows and who he's talked to. It gets worse, Williams continued. Hospital security found a van parked outside the main entrance with surveillance equipment pointed at the discharge area. The van's been there since 6 a.m. this morning. Whoever's running this operation knew Marcus was getting out today. Lou was already reaching for his phone. We need to move you to a safe location. Tonight. Wait, I said, my brain finally catching up. If Riley's in jail in Michigan, and Pinnacle's people are watching the hospital and breaking into medical records, who's been living in my house for the past 3 weeks? The room went dead silent. Martinez grabbed her radio. All units, we need immediate surveillance on 1247 Maple Street. Do not approach, observe only. Possible armed individuals inside. My phone buzzed with a text from Riley's number, coming home soon. Keep my room ready. Your loving sibling. Lou stared at the message. Riley's been in lockup for 18 hours. They didn't send this. Then who's been pretending to be Riley? I asked. Someone who needed you to think your sibling was the mastermind, Martinez said grimly, while the real operation stayed hidden. The patrol car's radio crackled with updates as we drove through the darkening streets toward the police station. Surveillance team in position at 1247 Maple Street. No movement visible, but there are lights on in the back bedroom and kitchen. Silver Subaru still in the driveway. Detective Martinez was riding shotgun, occasionally glancing back at me with the expression of someone trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Marcus, I need you to think carefully. In the months before your accident, did Riley introduce you to anyone new? Friends, romantic partners, business associates? I tried to focus despite the exhaustion that was hitting me like a wall. There was someone in July. Riley brought a friend to the barbecue I threw for the 4th of July weekend. Tall guy, maybe mid-30s, said he was in real estate investment. Lou, who was driving, caught my eyes in the rearview mirror. Do you remember his name? David something. Wait. My blood went cold. David Preston. He spent a lot of time asking questions about the house, about property values in the neighborhood. Said he was looking for investment opportunities. David Preston, Martinez repeated, already typing on her phone. That wouldn't happen to be about 6'2", silver hair, expensive suits. Yeah, that's him. How did you? The pieces clicked into place. David Pinnacle. David Preston. Same person. Son of a bitch has been planning this since July, Lou muttered. Probably longer. Martinez's phone buzzed with a response to whatever she'd sent. Facial recognition confirms it. David Pinnacle, real name David Preston Kowalski, has been running investment fraud operations up and down the East Coast for 8 years. Always the same pattern, identify targets with valuable assets, manipulate family members into debt, arrange accidents when necessary. So Riley really was just a mark, I said, feeling a strange mix of relief and horror. They got pulled into this. Riley was the entry point, Lou corrected. But they weren't innocent. Those embezzlement charges from Michigan. That's $43,000 stolen from their previous employers' accounts. Money that went straight to Pinnacle's operation. The radio crackled again. Detective Martinez, this is Surveillance Unit 7. We've got movement at the target location. Black sedan just pulled into the driveway. 2 individuals exiting the vehicle, both armed. Martinez grabbed the radio. Do not engage. Maintain visual contact only. Copy that. Wait, we've got a problem. The individuals are dragging someone from the back seat. Appears to be unconscious, approximately the same build as the target. My stomach dropped. Target? You, Lou said grimly, taking a hard right toward downtown. They've got someone they want people to think is you. Martinez was back on the radio, coordinating with what sounded like half the city's police force. Through the chatter, I caught fragments that made my blood run cold, body disposal. And, accelerant detected. And, fire department standing by. They're going to burn down my house, I said, the words coming out strangely calm. With a body inside that people will think is me. Insurance fraud, Lou confirmed. Your life insurance policy, plus the property insurance, plus Riley inherits everything cleanly once you're officially dead. Pinnacle gets his money, Riley gets out of debt, and you disappear permanently. Except Riley's sitting in a jail cell in Michigan. Which gives them the perfect alibi when their grieving sibling identifies your burned body, Martinez said. They'll be devastated, of course. Tragic accident, probably started by faulty wiring in that old house. My phone rang. Riley's number again. Martinez nodded for me to answer, while Lou pulled over so we could listen without road noise. Hello. Marcus. Riley's voice, but something was off about the tone. Too cheerful, like someone doing a bad impression. I'm so glad you called back. Listen, I've been thinking about our conversation earlier, and I feel terrible about the misunderstanding. Riley, where are you right now? I'm at the house, of course. Our house. I've been doing some thinking, and maybe we can work something out. Why don't you come home so we can talk face to face? Martinez was frantically typing on her phone. Riley Chin confirmed in Wayne County lockup as of 6 p.m. today. That's interesting, I said, because the police just told me you've been in jail in Michigan since yesterday. The line went quiet for a long moment. When the voice came back, the fake cheerfulness was gone. You always were too smart for your own good, Marcus. Just like your parents. A chill ran down my spine. What did you say about my parents? Car accident on I-94, December 15, 2018. Ice storm, they said. Dad lost control and went into the median barrier at 70 miles per hour. The voice was completely different now, cold, calculating. Except there was no ice storm that night. Just a very convenient accident for people who were asking too many questions about their investment portfolio. Martinez had gone pale. She grabbed the radio. All units, we have confirmation of additional homicides. Treat this as an active crime scene with extreme caution. You killed my parents, I whispered. I solved a problem. Your parents discovered some irregularities in their investment accounts and were threatening to involve the SEC. Much cleaner to handle it as a family tragedy. The voice was almost conversational now. Riley made things complicated by surviving your accident, but sometimes you have to adapt your plans. Riley survived because they weren't in the car with me. No, Riley survived because they were useful. Desperate people make excellent tools, Marcus. Your sibling has been working for me since January, feeding me information about your finances, your routines, your vulnerabilities. The embezzlement charges were just incentive to keep them cooperative. The radio crackled, surveillance reports heavy smoke from the rear of the building. Fire department moving in. You're burning down my house right now, I said. I'm closing a business transaction. Nothing personal, Marcus. You just happen to own something I needed to complete a very profitable arrangement. The line started breaking up with static. Don't take it personally. Your parents didn't. The call ended. Martinez was already coordinating emergency response when Lou's phone rang. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with an expression I couldn't read. That was Wayne County Sheriff's Department, he said quietly. Riley Chen was found dead in their cell 20 minutes ago. Apparent suicide, but the timing is suspicious. I stared out the window at the city lights blurring past, trying to process what felt like a complete collapse of reality. My parents hadn't died in an accident. Riley had been working for their killer for months before my accident. And now Riley was dead too, along with whoever Pinnacle had just burned alive in my house. How many people has he killed? I asked. We're about to find out, Martinez said grimly as Luke pulled into the police station parking lot. Because you're going to help us end this tonight. The police station's conference room had been transformed into what looked like a war room, whiteboards covered in timelines, photographs pinned to corkboards, and enough coffee cups to caffeinate a small army. Detective Martinez was on her third phone call in 10 minutes, coordinating with what seemed like every law enforcement agency on the East Coast. FBI's taking over the crime scene at your house, she told me, hanging up. Body in the back bedroom appears to be male, approximately your height and build. Dental records will take a few days, but the preliminary assumption is it's meant to be mistaken for you. Detective Lou spread out a new set of documents on the table. We got a warrant for Pinnacle's financial records. The scope of this operation is bigger than we thought. He's been running the same scam in 7 different states over the past 4 years. Estimated take is over $3 million. All from stealing houses. Houses, life insurance payouts, investment accounts, whatever assets the families had. Always the same pattern, identify a family with valuable property, get one family member into debt, arrange accidents for the others. Lou pulled out a thick folder. Look at this. The folder contained what looked like dossiers on dozens of families. Photos, financial records, property assessments, even social media screenshots. About halfway through the stack, I found a folder labeled Chin Family, Michigan/Illinois. Our folder was thick. Photos of our house, copies of our parents' investment statements, detailed notes about our family dynamics going back 2 years. There was even a photograph of me leaving for work one morning, date stamped from last February. He's been watching us for over a year, I said, feeling sick. Longer than that. Martinez pulled out a timeline from the folder. First contact with Riley Chen was January 2022 when they applied for a loan to cover gambling debts. Pinnacle specifically targeted Riley because our psychological profile indicated they would be susceptible to manipulation due to resentment towards successful older sibling. Psychological profile. Lou showed me a document that made my blood run cold. Pinnacle employs 2 clinical psychologists who create profiles on potential marks. They identified Riley as someone with narcissistic tendencies, financial insecurity, and existing family resentment. Perfect candidate for recruitment. The profile was terrifyingly accurate. It described Riley's tendency to blame others for their problems, their jealousy over my career success, their pattern of taking shortcuts instead of working through difficulties. It even noted their drinking habits and preferred manipulation tactics. This is like something out of a spy novel, I muttered. It gets worse, Martinez said, pulling out another section. Pinnacle didn't just manipulate Riley into debt, he engineered situations to make them desperate. The gambling debts. Pinnacle owns 3 of the underground poker games where Riley lost money. The job Riley got fired from for embezzlement. Pinnacle had an inside contact who suggested Riley for the position and then provided opportunities for them to steal money. He set up every part of Riley's downfall. Right down to making sure Riley would be desperate enough to participate in insurance fraud. Lou showed me bank records. Look at the timing of Riley's debt payments. Every time they got close to paying off one debt, a new expense would appear. Car repairs, medical bills, legal fees, all from companies with ties to Pinnacle's operation. Martinez's phone buzzed with a text. She read it and swore under her breath. Fire department found accelerant residue throughout your house. Professional job, whoever said it knew exactly how to make it look like an electrical fire until the investigation got deep enough to uncover the insurance fraud. But they wanted it to be discovered eventually. Eventually, yeah. After the life insurance paid out and the property got transferred to Riley's estate. Then the insurance company would investigate, find evidence of fraud, and Riley would become the prime suspect. Martinez showed me a flowchart from Pinnacle's folder. Except Riley would conveniently die in prison before trial, suicide from guilt and grief over their brother's death. Leaving no one to contradict Pinnacle's version of events. And no one to inherit the assets except the shell company's Pinnacle controls through forged estate planning documents. Lou pulled out copies of wills I'd never seen before, bearing perfect forgeries of both my parents' signatures. He's been building legal claims to your family's assets for 2 years. I stared at the fake wills, feeling a rage building that surprised me with its intensity. This wasn't just theft, it was the systematic destruction of my entire family, planned and executed with the precision of a military operation. How do we stop him? I asked. Martinez and Lou exchanged a look that told me they'd been hoping I'd ask that question. We need you to make a phone call, Martinez said. You want me to call Pinnacle? I asked, staring at the burner phone Detective Martinez had placed on the table between us. We want you to call the number he's been using to contact you, Lou corrected. Our tech team traced the routing through 3 different cell towers. He's operating out of a warehouse in Riverside Industrial Park, about 20 minutes from here. Martinez pulled up surveillance photos on her laptop. FBI's had eyes on the location since 7 p.m. Pinnacle's got at least 4 people with him, plus whatever's left of his operation. They're packing up, looks like they're planning to disappear tonight. What am I supposed to say to him? Tell him you want to make a deal, Lou said. You'll sign over your share of the house in exchange for guaranteed safety. Make him think you're scared and broken down. I looked at the phone like it might bite me. And then what happens? Then we trace the call duration and pin down his exact location in the warehouse. SWAT team is standing by to move in once we have confirmation. Martinez's expression was grim. But Marcus, I need you to understand, this is extremely dangerous. If Pinnacle suspects you're working with us, or if something goes wrong with the timing, he'll kill me like he killed my parents. Like he killed your parents, Riley, and at least 6 other people we've identified so far. Lou leaned forward. But this might be our only chance to get him. He's planning to be gone by midnight, and once he disappears, he'll resurface somewhere else with a new identity and start the whole operation over. My hands were shaking as I picked up the burner phone. The nerve damage in my left hand made my grip unsteady, but adrenaline was doing most of the work now. What if he doesn't believe I want to make a deal? Sell the fear, Martinez said. You just found out he killed your parents and your sibling. You're alone, injured, and you've seen what happens to people who cross him. You want out alive, and you're willing to pay whatever it costs. I dialed the number Pinnacle had called me from earlier. It rang 3 times before he picked up. I was wondering when you'd call. Pinnacle's voice was smooth, confident. I trust you've had time to process recent developments. You killed my family. I tried to make my voice sound broken, defeated. It wasn't hard. I solved business problems, Marcus. Your parents were threatening to expose financial irregularities that would have damaged my operation. Riley became a liability when they started talking to the wrong people in that jail cell. These things happen. The police think I'm dead. The house is burned down. What do you want from me? Smart question. I want your signature on documents transferring any remaining claims on your parents' estate to my holding company. Life insurance, investment accounts, the property in Michigan your parents owned that you probably forgot about. I had forgotten about the cabin in Traverse City. Mom and Dad had bought it as a retirement project but barely used it. How much is that worth to you? $200,000, give or take. But more importantly, it eliminates the last paper trail connecting me to your family's assets. Pinnacle's voice took on that reasonable businessman tone again. Sign the papers, take $50,000 cash for your trouble, and disappear. Change your name, start over somewhere warm. Everyone wins. Martinez was gesturing frantically, mouthing, keep him talking. How do I know you won't just kill me after I sign? Because dead men can't spend money, and live men who disappear permanently are almost as good as dead men for my purposes. I could hear background noise, people moving boxes, car engines, the beep of equipment being shut down. Besides, you've seen what I'm capable of. You're not going to cause problems. I want 100,000, I said, trying to sound like someone desperately negotiating for their life. And I want to see Riley's body. Pinnacle laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. Riley's body is in a Wayne County morgue, Marcus. Apparent suicide, very tragic. You'll read about it in tomorrow's news. As for the money, 75,000, and only because you've been more trouble than anticipated. Lou was holding up a tablet showing a countdown timer, 90 seconds to trace completion. Where do we meet? I asked. You don't come to me, Marcus. I come to you. Where are you right now? My blood went cold. Martinez was shaking her head violently, drawing her finger across her throat. I'm at a motel on Route 47, I lied. Riverside Inn, room 23. No, you're not. You're at the downtown police station on 5th Street, and you've been there for the past 2 hours. Pinnacle's voice had gone ice cold. Did you really think I didn't have people watching the police station, Marcus? The line went dead. Martinez grabbed her radio, all units, suspect is aware of police involvement. Move in immediately. Repeat, execute search warrant now. Lou's phone rang. He answered, listened for 10 seconds, then looked at us with an expression that made my stomach drop. Warehouse is empty, he said. Looks like they cleared out an hour ago. But there's something else. Riverside and reports a break-in at room 23 20 minutes ago. Someone was looking for you. The silence in the conference room felt like a held breath. Martinez was coordinating search teams over her radio while Lou pulled up traffic cameras on his laptop, trying to track where Pinnacle's operation had gone. I sat staring at the burner phone, replaying every word of that conversation and trying not to think about how thoroughly I'd been outmaneuvered. Marcus, Martinez said, ending her radio call, we need to assume Pinnacle knows everything about your movements since you left the hospital. Phone tracking, surveillance, maybe even someone inside the system feeding him information. Inside the police department. Or the hospital, or the insurance company, or any of the dozen agencies that have been involved in this case today. Lou was scrolling through traffic camera footage, looking for black sedans or silver Subarus. Professional operations like this always have inside sources. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Room 23 was very disappointing. Your taste in motels needs work. D. He's mocking us, I said, showing them the message. No, Martinez said, studying the text. He's showing off. Pinnacle's got an ego, that's his weakness. He wants us to know how smart he is, how thoroughly he's planned this. Lou looked up from his laptop. Traffic cameras show a convoy of 3 vehicles leaving the warehouse district at 8:47 p.m., about 10 minutes before we got the trace location. They knew exactly when to run. So what now? He's gone, Riley's dead, my house is burned down, and he's got all my family's assets. Not all of them, Martinez said, pulling out her phone. Remember, Pinnacle wants those documents signed transferring the Michigan property. That cabin in Traverse City is the last piece he needs to complete the theft. Which means he's not done with me. Which means we get another chance. She was already dialing. FBI has a safe house in Grand Rapids, about an hour from the cabin. We can set up surveillance, make Pinnacle come to us on our terms. Lou's computer chimed with an incoming message. He read it and frowned. This is interesting. Wayne County Sheriff just sent Riley's personal effects from the jail cell. Look what they found. He showed me a photo of a handwritten note. Marcus, if something happens to me, check the storage unit. You store it on Maple Avenue, Unit 247. Combination is Mom's birthday. I kept copies of everything. R. My heart started racing. Riley kept evidence. Looks like it. Smart move, actually, insurance policy in case Pinnacle decided they were expendable. Martinez was already coordinating with local units. How sure are you about your mother's birthday being the combination? March 15, 1962. So 031562. I paused. But why didn't Riley tell me about this before? Lou pulled up the storage facility's address on his map. Maybe they were planning to, before they got arrested. Or maybe they were scared Pinnacle would find out and kill them for keeping evidence. Which he did anyway. Yeah, but now we've got access to whatever Riley collected. Martinez grabbed her jacket. Storage facility is 12 minutes from here. If Riley really kept copies of everything, we might finally have enough evidence to track down Pinnacle's entire operation. We were halfway to the parking garage when Lou's phone rang again. He answered it while walking, then stopped so abruptly that Martinez and I nearly collided with him. What? Martinez demanded. That was the FBI lab in Detroit. They rushed the dental records on the body from your house. Lou looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Marcus, that wasn't some random person they burned alive. The body belongs to Eddie Vasquez. The truck driver who hit me. The truck driver who was supposed to have killed you. Pinnacle's cleaning up loose ends. Lou resumed walking, but faster now. Which means anyone who can connect him to your accident is in immediate danger. Like the notary who forged the documents. Like the notary, the freight brokers who arranged the trucking contract, the people at the storage facility if they saw Riley putting things in that unit. Martinez was practically jogging now. And like you, because you're the only person who can testify about the timeline of the fraud. We reached the patrol car just as my phone rang. This time it was a number I recognized, the main line for You Store It. Mr. Chin. The voice was nervous, female, probably young. This is Ashley from You Store It. I'm calling because someone broke into Unit 247 about an hour ago, and your name is on our contact list for that unit. My blood went cold. What did they take? That's the weird thing, they didn't take anything. They just destroyed everything. Burned it all in the unit itself. Fire department just finished putting it out. Ashley paused. Sir, there were some men here earlier asking about you. They seemed really interested in when you might show up. Martinez grabbed the radio as we pulled out of the parking garage. All units, You Store It on Maple Avenue is now a crime scene. Suspect may still be in the area. They're always one step ahead, I said, feeling the last of my hope drain away. Not always, Lou said grimly, taking a hard left toward the storage facility. Sometimes they make mistakes when they're in a hurry. And burning evidence in a public storage unit? That was sloppy. Or desperate, Martinez added. Maybe Riley's insurance policy was better than Pinnacle expected. The storage facility looked like a war zone. 3 fire trucks were still on scene, their red and blue lights painting the metal buildings in shifting colors that made my eyes water. Unit 247 was a blackened shell, the roll-up door twisted and melted from the heat. The acrid smell of burned plastic and paper hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Detective Martinez flashed her badge at the fire chief, a weathered man in his 50s who looked like he'd seen everything twice. Arson? She asked without preamble. Professional job, he confirmed, pulling off his helmet. Accelerant pattern suggests they knew exactly how to contain the fire to one unit without spreading to adjacent storage areas. Whoever did this has training. Lou was photographing the scene while I tried to process the destruction. Whatever evidence Riley had collected was now nothing but ash and twisted metal. Months of documentation, maybe the only proof of Pinnacle's systematic fraud, reduced to carbon residue. Chief, Martinez called out, any chance your guys found anything salvageable before the fire spread? Funny you should ask. He led us around to the back of his truck and pointed to a small pile of items on a tarp. Unit had a fireproof safe hidden behind some boxes. Cheap model, but it protected whatever was inside long enough for us to extract it. My heart jumped. Riley had bought a fireproof safe. The chief handed Martinez a pair of evidence gloves. Haven't opened it yet, figured you'd want to be here for that. The safe was about the size of a briefcase, its exterior scorched but intact. Lou documented everything with his camera while Martinez worked the combination. March 15, 1962. The lock clicked open on the first try. Inside were 3 manila folders, a USB drive, and what looked like a handwritten journal. The paper was slightly warped from heat but completely readable. Martinez opened the first folder and whistled low. Riley documented everything. Bank transfers, phone records, meeting locations, this is a complete timeline of Pinnacle's operation. The journal was more personal. Riley's handwriting, chronicling their recruitment into Pinnacle's scheme. Asterisk January 15, 2022, met David at the poker game on 5th Street. Lost big again, but he offered to help with my debts. Seemed too good to be true. Should have trusted that instinct, asterisk. Asterisk February 3, 2022, David wants detailed information about Marcus's finances and daily routine. Says he's considering Marcus for a legitimate investment opportunity. I know this is wrong, but I owe him $18,000 now and he's not the kind of person who accepts late payments, asterisk. Asterisk March 22, 2022, gave David copies of Marcus's bank statements and the spare house key. He paid off my credit cards in exchange. I keep telling myself I'm not really hurting Marcus, just providing information. But deep down I know this is going to end badly, asterisk. Lou was reading over my shoulder. Your sibling had second thoughts early on. I flipped ahead in the journal. Asterisk July 8, 2022, David's plan is bigger than I thought. He's not just targeting Marcus, he wants to eliminate our entire family and take everything. He showed me files on Mom and Dad's accident. I've been working for the man who killed our parents. I feel sick, asterisk. Asterisk August 15, 2022, tried to back out, but David has evidence of my embezzlement from the Michigan job. He arranged that too, set me up from the beginning. Says if I don't cooperate with the plan to kill Marcus, he'll make sure I go to prison for 20 years. I'm trapped, asterisk. Asterisk September 10, 2022, David finalized the truck driver arrangement tonight. Marcus is going to die tomorrow, and it's my fault. I can't live with this, but I can't stop it either. The only thing I can do is document everything and hope someone finds this evidence after I'm gone, asterisk. The final entry was dated September 11th, the day of my accident. Asterisk they did it. Marcus is in critical condition and might not survive. David's people are already moving to transfer the property assets. I helped murder my own brother. I've hidden copies of all David's documents in this safe. If Marcus dies, at least maybe someday David will pay for what he's done to our family. If Marcus survives, maybe this evidence can save him, asterisk. My hands were shaking as I closed the journal. Riley hadn't just been a victim or a co-conspirator, they'd been trapped in an impossible situation, trying to find a way to protect me while being blackmailed by our parents' killer. Martinez's phone rang. She answered, listened for 30 seconds, then looked at me with an expression that made my stomach clench. That was the FBI lab. They found something interesting in Eddie Vasquez's personal effects. She paused. A second phone with text messages from someone coordinating not just your accident, but also Riley's death in that jail cell. Riley didn't commit suicide. Riley was murdered to keep them quiet. And according to these text messages, Pinnacle's planning to eliminate 2 more people tonight. Martinez showed me her phone screen. The notary who forged your documents, and someone listed only as the brother. Lou looked up from photographing the evidence. Marcus, they still think you're dead in that house fire. But if they find out you survived, then I'm next on the cleanup list. My phone buzzed with yet another unknown number. This time, when I answered, it wasn't Pinnacle's voice. Marcus Chin. The voice was elderly, shaky. This is Dorothy Henshaw. I'm the notary who signed those documents for your family. I think someone's trying to kill me. My blood went cold as I gripped the phone tighter. Mrs. Henshaw, where are you right now? I'm hiding in my neighbor's basement. There were 2 men at my house an hour ago, asking about documents I notarized in September. When I wouldn't let them in, they broke my kitchen window. Her voice was trembling. I saw them pour something that smelled like gasoline around my front porch before I ran. Detective Martinez grabbed a second phone and was already calling for units to respond to whatever address Mrs. Henshaw would give us. Lou was frantically typing on his laptop, pulling up property records and mapping software. Mrs. Henshaw, I need you to give me your neighbor's address, I said. The police are going to come get you right now. 1247, Oak Street, the blue house with the garden gnomes. But Marcus, there's something else. Those documents I notarized for your family. I have copies of everything in my personal files. Bank signature cards, property transfers, even a life insurance beneficiary change form I was supposed to file last week. Martinez looked up sharply. Life insurance beneficiary change. Mrs. Henshaw, I said, what did that form say? It changed the primary beneficiary on your policy from Riley Chin to something called Chin Family Estate Services. $500,000. Papers rustled in the background. I thought it was strange because the person who brought it claimed to be you, but the signature looked different from the other documents. Shakier, like someone recovering from an injury. My hands were trembling now. Did you file that form? Not yet. Something felt wrong about it, so I kept it in my pending file. Good thing too, because now I know that man wasn't really you. Lou looked up from his computer. Marcus, if that beneficiary change had gone through, Chin Family Estate Services, Pinnacle's shell company, would collect $500,000 when you died in that house fire. Which means he's not done trying to kill me, I realized. Martinez was coordinating emergency response over her radio when Mrs. Henshaw's voice got more urgent. Oh no. Oh no, they found me. I can see flashlights in the backyard. They're checking all the houses. Mrs. Henshaw, stay on the line with me, I said. Help is coming. I can hear them talking. Something about cleaning up loose ends before midnight. And Marcus, they mentioned someone called the truck driver is already handled, and the brother's location has been confirmed. They know where I am, I whispered to Martinez. She was already moving toward the patrol car. All units, officer safety situation at the police station. Possible armed individuals targeting witness Marcus Chin. Through the phone, I heard Mrs. Henshaw gasp. They're at the back door. They have some kind of equipment, cutting through the lock. Mrs. Henshaw, is there another way out of that basement? There's a root cellar that connects to the house next door, but I don't know if. The line went dead. Lou slammed his laptop shut. We need to move. If they're willing to break into occupied houses to eliminate witnesses, nowhere is safe until we get Pinnacle. Except we don't know where he is, Martinez said, starting the engine. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Henshaw's number. The notary had an accident. Stop looking for people who can't be found, or you'll have an accident too. Last chance to disappear, Marcus. But there was something else in that message, a photo attachment that made my heart race. It showed Mrs. Henshaw's kitchen table with her notary files spread across it, and in the corner of the image, barely visible, was an address written on a sticky note, Warehouse District, 1847, Industrial Boulevard, Unit C. They made a mistake, I said, showing Martinez the photo. Look at the background. Lou studied the image and grinned grimly. Industrial Boulevard. That's 6 blocks from the warehouse they abandoned earlier. He's not leaving town, Martinez realized. He's moving between properties he controls, staying ahead of our search pattern. She grabbed her radio. All units, converge on 1847, Industrial Boulevard. Suspect may be holding hostages. As we raced through the empty streets, my phone rang one more time. Pinnacle's voice was calm, almost conversational. You're more resourceful than I anticipated, Marcus. Most people would have taken the hint by now. Most people haven't had their entire family murdered by a psychopath. Fair point. Tell me, are you enjoying this little game of cat and mouse? Because I have to admit, it's been more entertaining than usual. Martinez was making frantic gestures, trying to keep him talking while we closed the distance to Industrial Boulevard. What do you want from me? I asked. At this point. Nothing you can give me alive, Pinnacle said. But I'm curious, how did you know to look for Mrs. Henshaw's files? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? You went straight to that storage unit, then straight to the notary. That suggests you have information I wasn't aware of. Information that died with Riley, or should have. I realized what he was fishing for. He wanted to know if there were other copies of evidence he hadn't found. Maybe I'm just smarter than your previous victims, I said. Pinnacle laughed. We'll see about that. You have 30 minutes to reach 1847, Industrial Boulevard, Unit C. Come alone, or Mrs. Henshaw joins your parents and Riley. How do I know she's still alive? You don't. But if you want the chance to find out, you'll come exactly as I've instructed. The line went dead as we pulled into the warehouse district, and I realized this had been Pinnacle's plan all along, force me into a final confrontation where he controlled every variable. Except this time, I wasn't walking in blind. The warehouse district at midnight looked like something from a horror movie, rows of identical concrete buildings under flickering streetlights, shadows that seemed to move on their own. Detective Martinez positioned SWAT teams at 3 different entry points while I walked toward Unit C with a wire taped to my chest and more backup than a presidential visit. Remember, Martinez's voice crackled through my earpiece. Keep him talking. We need confirmation that Mrs. Henshaw is alive before we move. Unit C was at the end of a long row, its metal door slightly ajar with warm light spilling out. I could see shadows moving inside, at least 3 people, maybe more. Marcus Chin, Pinnacle's voice called out as I approached. Right on time. Come in slowly, hands visible. I pushed through the door and found myself in what looked like a mobile command center. Banks of computer monitors lined one wall, showing surveillance feeds from locations I recognized, the police station, St. Mary's Hospital, even the storage facility where we'd been 2 hours ago. Mrs. Henshaw sat zip-tied to a chair in the corner, alive but terrified. 2 men in tactical gear flanked the entrance. Impressive operation, I said, looking around. How long have you been watching me? Since you left the hospital this morning. Actually, since before that. Pinnacle gestured to one of the monitors showing my old house, now a burned shell. I've been planning your death for 8 months, Marcus. Today was just the execution phase. Except I'm not dead. A temporary setback. Easily corrected. He pulled out a tablet and showed me a document. Life insurance beneficiary change form, properly notarized by Mrs. Henshaw here. All it needs is your signature. And if I don't sign, then you die anyway, but Mrs. Henshaw dies first. And messily. Pinnacle's voice stayed conversational. I prefer clean business transactions, Marcus. Everyone gets what they want, I get the insurance money, you get a quick death instead of a slow one. Through my earpiece, I heard Martinez whisper, 30 seconds out. I needed to keep him talking. Before I sign anything, I want to know about my parents. How did you kill them? Pinnacle smiled, clearly enjoying the chance to show off. Remote access to their car's computer system. Amazing what you can do with modern vehicles, disable airbags, override steering, accelerate to fatal speeds. Made it look like your father fell asleep at the wheel. And the truck driver who hit me? Eddie Vasquez. 15,000 to drive tired and hit a specific car at a specific intersection. Unfortunately, Eddie got nervous after you survived and started talking about coming clean. Had to eliminate him too. Mrs. Henshaw was staring at us in horror, probably realizing she was listening to a confession of multiple murders. One more question, I said. Riley really tried to back out, didn't they? Riley developed an inconvenient conscience. Started making noises about going to the police, protecting their big brother. Pinnacle shrugged. Prison suicide was the cleanest solution. The warehouse light suddenly cut out, plunging us into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. Through the chaos of shouts and running footsteps, I heard Martinez's voice boom through a megaphone, FBI. Nobody move. SWAT team members poured through 3 different entrances simultaneously, their tactical lights cutting through the red emergency glow like lasers. Pinnacle's men went for their weapons, but it was over in seconds. Professional operators versus desperate criminals, no contest. I found Mrs. Henshaw and cut her restraints while paramedics checked her vitals. She was shaken but unharmed. Is it over? She asked, voice still trembling. I looked at David Pinnacle being read his rights, his sophisticated operation reduced to evidence bags and arrest reports. Yeah, Mrs. Henshaw. It's finally over. 3 months later, I stood in the ruins of my burned house, watching contractors clear the debris for rebuilding. Pinnacle had pled guilty to 17 felony charges including 3 counts of first-degree murder. He'd get life without parole, assuming he survived long enough in prison. Apparently, killing families for money doesn't make you popular with other inmates. The insurance settlements would cover rebuilding the house and then some. More importantly, I'd recovered all the assets Pinnacle had stolen, plus damages that would fund a foundation in my parents' and Riley's memory. Riley's funeral had been small, just me, some old friends, and Detective Martinez, who'd become something like family through this whole nightmare. I'd forgiven my sibling. They'd made terrible choices, but they'd also tried to make amends in the end. The evidence they preserved had not only saved my life but helped convict a man who destroyed dozens of families. My phone rang as I walked back to my rental car. Unknown number, but I wasn't worried anymore. Mr. Chin. This is Janet from Pinnacle Investment Group's bankruptcy trustee office. We've recovered another $200,000 in hidden assets. Should be transferred to the Victim Compensation Fund by Friday. Even from prison, Pinnacle was still paying for what he'd done. I drove home, to my temporary apartment, and started planning the Memorial Foundation's first project, a support network for families targeted by financial predators. Riley would have liked that, I thought. Helping people avoid the trap they'd fallen into. The nightmare was over. My family was gone, but their memory would protect other families from going through what we had. Sometimes that's the best justice you can get.